Take a moment's time to read this question. You would get these questions under critical reasoning. You must know the approach to solve these questions. Starting with the format, you are given a short text followed by a question and options. While you are on such question type, the first step is to read the text and identify the claim in the text. If you read the text again, you will understand a company is considering a policy change. And what is the change in its policy? The employees of this particular company should report at 8 a.m. Now, if this policy is implemented, it would allow its employees to report any time between 6 a.m. and 11 a.m. The claim in the question is a policy change which allows a company's employees to report anywhere between 6 a.m. and 11 a.m. instead of reporting at 8 a.m. This is step 1. Step 2 is to understand the question. You need to be careful with this step because reading a question doesn't mean that you have understood it completely. So understanding can happen by asking yourself the key word, the question. The question asks you which of the following employees' job functions would be mostly affected if this policy were adopted. So which is the keyword in this question? You have been asked to identify a function that would be mostly affected. If you have understood the question, step 3 is to analyze each option. So probably the first 2 steps are quite common. You would usually read the text, you're supposed to understand the text and you have to go to the question. But what do you mean by analysis? That is where this video is gonna help you a lot. Only when you're trained to analyze options given, you can be very sure of getting the right choice. Now, to summarize this text talks about a policy change of a company wherein it allows its employees to report anywhere between 6 a.m. and 11 a.m. And the question asks you, if this policy were adopted, which of the following 4 job functions would be mostly affected? Okay, let's move on to option A. Option A says interact frequently with each other throughout the entire workday. Can this be the choice? Perhaps when we read immediately, we do feel that A could be the answer. So let's reserve it for a while. Look at the second option. Consult at least once a day with employees from other companies. The option says consult at least once. If the employees report anywhere between 6 a.m. and 11 a.m. and if the requirement is to consult at least once, yes, they can consult at least once a day because they have enough time. From this we can understand this is not a job function that's gonna be mostly affected. They can very well consult once in a day, even though if they report any time between 6 and 11 a.m. Look at option C. Submit their work for a supervisor's eventual approval. Irrespective of the reporting time, option C says they should submit their work for their supervisor's approval, which means whenever they complete their work, they need to submit it. So for this, the reporting time is not going to affect them because there isn't any time specified for submission to the supervisor. Hence, C can be eliminated as well. Option D, work without interruption from other employees. You may doubt that this option could be the right choice, but actually it is not so. It is a trap choice. Work without interruption. What do you understand about this? Without interruption means work without disturbance. Work without interruption is always productive work, so we can't say that this job function be affected. Therefore, we can conclude answer is option A. Interact frequently with each other throughout the entire work day. Will this be mostly affected? True, because if each employee reports at his or her convenient time anywhere between 6 and 11, they may interact, but they cannot interact frequently. So this is the function that's gonna be affected the most. Every time, remember the steps. Step 1 is to identify the claim. The claim in the text says the rate of violent crime has increased in a particular state. Has the argument stopped at that point? No, it doesn't. It says why it has increased, because the text says the fault lies entirely in our court system. So the claim of the text is crime rate has gone up due to weak judiciary. The question asks you to weaken the argument. The question reads, the argument above would be weakened if it were true that. So you need to identify a choice that would weaken the argument. Let's start analyzing the options. Option A, 85% of the other states in the nation have lower crime rates than does this state. Option A is a misleading option. Your text is very much concerned with the reason for the increase in crime rate, and according to the text, the increase in crime rate is due to the leniency of judges. If that's the case, if you look at option A, it neither strengthens nor weakens because it provides you a comparison. For you to understand option A better, I'll give you an example. If someone asks you why you have scored less than 60 marks in a particular paper, you need to give them a reason why you have scored less. Rather, if you say not only me, even others have scored less, or in fact many have scored less than 50 in this particular paper, does it give a reason? Certainly doesn't. Option A provides you a comparison of crime rates, or it says that other states have lower crime rate. It doesn't give us a reason, or it doesn't weaken the argument. We can eliminate option A. Option B says sexual crime in this state has also increased by over 25% in the last year. The meaning of option B is not only the crime rate has gone up, the other crime has also been increased. When you use the word also, actually it strengthens. So option B supports the argument. Your question asks you to weaken it, hence option B can be eliminated. Look at option C. 35% of the police in this state have been laid off in the last year due to budget cuts. Option C gives you a reason that why the crime rate has gone up. It says reduction in police force could have been a possible reason for increase in crime rate. So C does weaken it. Therefore, we are reserving option C. Look at option D. Polls show that 65% of the population in this state oppose capital punishment. By the way, what do you understand by the phrase capital punishment? Capital punishment means sentencing one to death. Indirectly, option D supports the argument. When you say 65% of the population, it means majority. If the majority of the population oppose, or if they don't want death sentence, then that explains why judges are lenient. So D supports the argument, hence D can also be eliminated. C weakens the argument, therefore option C is the right choice. While you read the text, you can easily understand the text's meaning. Here it says 3 Everett-owned Lightning-built airplanes crashed. So a particular airline company's 3 planes crashed in a month. The Everett company ordered 3 new Lightning-built airplanes, from which you can understand this airline has lost 3 planes belong to the same model. It says lightning built airplanes. From here we can understand this is one model. They ordered 3 new lightning built airplanes. So which means this airline has ordered the same model. This decision surprised many. That is the decision of Everett company to buy the same model surprised many. Why did it surprise? Because when a product is involved in accidents, users become reluctant to buy that product. Well, the text says an airline company which has lost 3 of its planes has ordered the same model again. This decision to buy the same model has surprised many in the industry. This is what the claim of the argument, if you want to summarize, is the decision of Everett company. What is the decision? The decision is to buy the same model. First, we have ensured that we understood the claim. Let's read the question. Which of the following, if true, provides the best indication that Everett company's decision was logically well supported? The question asks you to choose a choice that would support the logic of Everett. Let's go to the choices. Choice A. The lightning built airplanes crashed due to pilot error, but because of the excellent quality of the planes, there were many survivors. Now, option A provides a convincing reason to say why did they choose to buy the same model. Because of the excellent quality of the planes, there were many survivors. Option A provides a convincing reason. Let's reserve the choice for a while. Look at option B. The Federal Aviation Association issued new guidelines for airlines. There is no need to read further because we are dealing with a specific problem of a specific airline. A particular airline has lost its planes and it has decided to buy new planes. So there is no role for association, nor there is rule for airlines. This is specific for an airline. We can say this is irrelevant answer choice. The entire question is about a particular decision of a particular company to buy a model. That has nothing to do with aviation association, or that has nothing to do with the guidelines that has to be followed by airlines. Look at option C. Consumer advocates pressured 2 major airlines into purchasing safer airplanes so that the public would be safer while flying. Now, there is an easy clue for us to eliminate this choice. The easy clue lies here. 2 major airlines. That's what option C says. We know very well this argument involves only one airline. There are no 2 major airlines being talked about. So we can easily eliminate that choice C. Option D. Many employees of the Everett company were terminated due to their inability to meet the job requirements. Now we are discussing why the company wanted to buy the same model. That has nothing to do with termination of employees. Option D is also irrelevant. Therefore, the answer for this question is option A. So to summarize further, this argument is about the decision of a company. The decision is to buy the same model. So the question asks you to identify of the 4 options given, the option that would support the argument. We went on to 4 choices, of which we have found option A is the one that supports the logic the best. How? Because it says the lightning built airplanes crashed due to pilot error, but because of the excellent quality of the planes, there were many survivors. So option A provides a reason why Everett decided to buy the same lightning built airplane. The reason is they decided to buy the same plane because this plane was made of excellent quality, due to which there were many survivors. We'll go to the next question. Well, the first question or the previous question would have given you a rough idea about critical reasoning questions as such. You'll be given an argument, a question followed by 4 options. This question type is very much similar to reading comprehension question. The only difference is the text under critical reasoning would be very short and the text will be pretty much lengthier in reading comprehension. Well, the approach almost remains the same. In my opinion, I would strongly recommend you to practice more critical reasoning questions before you get into reading comprehension. I would say this is the basic requirement, or I would say this is a prerequisite. Anyone who wants to solve questions more accurately in reading comprehension, anyone who aims to consume less time in reading comprehension question and to assure oneself the best result, then he or she should practice critical reasoning questions. Well, as I said that you will be given a short text. We call the text an argument. By the way, what do you mean by an argument? If I ask you a question, what do you mean by an argument? Suddenly, you might be a little bit stunned. Let me simplify it. Can you simplify the word argument from a statement? What do you mean by an argument and what do you mean by a statement? There is a difference. Statement always states a fact that is acceptable. You read a text or you listen to someone, you are convinced about the fact, then that is a statement. Argument, on the other hand, describes a fact that is questionable. Thereby, I would say the very first approach to reading a text is to consider the text as the author's argument. The author is trying to convey an idea. It could be right, it could be questionable, it could be logically well made, or it could be illogical. That is up to us to determine the validity of the text being given. We should determine the validity of that is, the reader should determine the validity of the text meaning. We cannot simply go by what the text says. Well, moving on. The moment we understand the critical reasoning questions provide you an argument, the next logical step is to know that the argument has 2 main segments. One is the conclusion, the other one is evidence. Conclusion is nothing but the claim or the central idea which the author of the argument wants to convey. Evidence or premise is nothing but the proof that the author of the argument uses to arrive at the conclusion. With the help of evidence, he would reach a conclusion. So, while you start reading an argument, identify the claim of the argument and you can ask yourself how the claim is arrived at. If you could read it through this perspective, reading a text, identifying what the author is trying to convey and how he conveys it. Let me summarize the entire idea into 2 simple words. While you read the text, you try to figure out what the text is about, what the author of the argument wants to convey. Second, you try to find out from the given text how the author arrives at the idea. If you could have an eye for these 2 questions, one, what the author is trying to convey, another, how he conveys it, you could read any text and understand it easily. The very approach And the very objective of this session is to make you read any text for that matter. Let the given passage be on science, let the given passage be on philosophy, let the given passage be on literature, be it any text. You won't feel that, well, I'm reading a text and that is very much dull and uninteresting and I'm feeling sleepy. If you could look through these, and probably while you practice these questions on critical reasoning and while you watch the video on the subsequent questions, you could get the knack of answering these questions more accurately. Get ready. Well, I just told you the importance of practicing critical reasoning questions and the fundamentals that you should remember while you read a text in general and more specifically for critical reasoning questions. Now, here are the steps. Step 1 is to identify the claim. We know that an argument is made of two important elements. One is the conclusion, the other one is evidence. Conclusion, nothing but the central idea. So step 1 is to read the text and find out what the author is trying to convey. Step 2 is to understand the meaning of the question. Now, this is where many would trip. Understanding the question doesn't mean reading the question once or twice. Understanding the question means you should know the key word. Try to figure out the key word for the question to ensure what the question asks you to do. Third step is to analyze each choice. Now, the third step is the ultimate tool for you to improve your efficiency in aptitude questions at large. What do you mean by analysis? I will explain. Prior to that, the steps 1 and 2 are very much common. Not only you, everyone else is going to do the same thing. He or she will read the text first and he will browse the question and is going to answer. But step 3 is the one that will differentiate you from your competitor. Step 3 is to analyze each choice. And what do you mean by analysis? All the while, traditionally or to this moment, your practice would be to read a question and to identify the right choice. Am I right? If you are on an objective type question, a question which has 4 options, you would read the question and you would keep looking for the right choice. Please listen. If you start looking for the right choice, that's where all the trouble begins. So what should you do instead? Don't worry about looking for the right choice. Start analyzing each choice. What do you mean by analysis? Of the 4 options given, you should find 3 wrong options out of 4. How to find out 3 wrong options? That's what you're going to learn. And if you could learn the art of picking wrong options, if you learn how to eliminate wrong options, you would land up on the right choice. Your efficiency to score more is directly proportional to your efficiency of eliminating wrong options. How to eliminate wrong options? Keep watching. Well, you get to know the importance of critical reasoning questions. I said that is the prerequisite to improve your performance on reading comprehension questions. Knowing that, you must also know the approach to critical reasoning questions. Step 1 is to identify the claim. The claim, I said, is nothing but the central idea. The author is trying to convey an idea or a message, and you should find out what the message is or what the idea being conveyed by the author of the argument. Step 2, understand the meaning of the question. Now, at least I would say 50% of the contestants in any of the exam fail in second step itself because they misunderstand that reading a question means understanding the question. No. Reading it once or twice doesn't mean you have understood the question well. Understanding the meaning of the question means you should know what the question asks you to do. And the best way to ensure that you understood the meaning of the question is to look for the keyword in the question, so that you would exactly know what the question wants you to do. Step 3 is to analyze each choice. Probably the first 2 steps are much common. Either be it you or be it anyone else who was gonna ask the question will read the text and will read the question. But the step 3 is the ultimate tool to differentiate you from the rest of the competitors. Why do I say that this is the tool that's going to differentiate you from the rest? Because till this moment, you would read a question and you would start looking for the right choice. Am I right? You would agree that the moment you read the question, you would start looking for the right choice. That's where the real trouble comes. Please don't look for the right choice. On the other hand, start analyzing each choice. And by analysis, I mean out of 4 options given, you must eliminate 3 wrong options. That is the game. You are given 4 options, you need to identify the right choice. What I would say is, instead of looking for the choice, which is the answer, you make your task simple. Try to eliminate 3 wrong options. And this has a logic. Eliminating 3 options must follow a logic. And that's what you're going to learn now. How to eliminate wrong options. Keep watching. You have been provided a text. You can take a minute's time, or you can pause the video, read the text first, and then proceed further. In Arizona, profits from sales of Grainco's biggest selling product, cornflakes, have dropped by 30% over the last 3 years. During this same time, the value of a share of Grainco's stock rose by over 20%. This is puzzling because the value of a stock usually decreases when a company's sales decrease. Altogether, this argument has only 3 sentences. The first sentence says, the company's biggest selling product, cornflakes, has poor sales. It says have dropped by 30%. The sales or the profit from sales dropped by 30%. The second sentence says, during the same time, the value of a share of Grainco stock rose by 20%. And the third sentence says this is puzzling. What is puzzling? The argument itself provides a reason. Whenever the sale of a product comes down, logically the value of a stock also will come down. Here there is a contradiction. Value of the stock is on the increase, while the sale or profit is decreasing. Your question asks you to identify an option that will resolve the above puzzle. Find out among the 4 options which option provides an answer for this puzzle. In other words, of the 4 options, one option should say how, despite profit being decreased, the value of the stock has increased. Let's try to find out. And how are we going to find out? We are going to analyze all the 4 options. We'll begin with option A. Severe drought in the Midwest destroyed a large percentage of the corn crop, forcing Grainco to buy less corn. If you read option A, does option A resolve the puzzle? The puzzle is to explain the contradiction, how the value of the stock has gone up. Rather, it has stopped with just one segment. It says severe drought in Midwest destroyed a large percentage of the corn crop, forcing Grainco to buy less corn. Perhaps this may explain why cornflakes profit has come down, but it doesn't explain how the value of stock has increased. Thereby, we can eliminate option A. Look at option B. Grainco closed a food processing plant in a locality that offered cheap labor and low taxes. Option B talks about the step taken by Grainco, that it has closed a food processing plant that offered cheap labor and low taxes. If this is true, then option B talks about a fact which has no relevance to the question that we are talking about. The question has asked us to solve the puzzle, which means your choice should say why the value has increased or why the stock value has increased. But option B talks about an action taken by Grainco which says they have closed a food processing plant. Thereby, option B neither answers how the stock value has increased, nor has it talked about the reason for poor sale. Let's eliminate option B. Look at option C. Profits from Grainco oatmeal, which account for a large part of Grainco's total sales and profits, increased dramatically in both the foreign and domestic markets. While you read C, do you think option C provides you a reason? Of course it does. Your argument says its biggest selling product, cornflakes, profit has decreased. Whereas option C says Grainco oatmeal, it says another product like cornflakes, another product, oatmeal, is doing well. Now that would explain why even though cornflakes profit is coming down, how Grainco managed to gain a good value for its stock. So option C, yes, provides an explanation for the increase in its stock value. Let's keep it. Option D, several articles in prominent business publications listed Grainco as a company that has poor management. Those who stay in touch with newspapers or those who watch news regularly can easily associate this idea and the impact of this idea. If there is an article that says Grainco has poor management, then that must have resulted in poor or a decrease in stock value. Here the stock value has gone up. So option D doesn't solve the puzzle. We can eliminate this option. Thereby, the right choice for this question is option C. C explains that in spite of profit coming down in cornflakes, Grainco's oatmeal is doing well, and that is why the stock value of Grainco has increased. Answer for this question is option C. The law of demand states that if all other factors remain equal, the higher the price of a good or a product, the less will consume that good. In other words, the higher the price, the lower the quantity demanded. So this argument says the cost or the price of the product is indirectly proportional to the demand for a product. Meaning, when the price is up, demand will be less. When the price is low, demand will be more. That's what the argument says. This principle is illustrated when, so your question asks to identify an option which illustrates the same principle. Let's start analyzing all the four options. Option A, a manufacturer of luxury cars noticed that its consumer base is relatively unresponsive to changes in price. A fails to explain the principle because it says the manufacturer of luxury cars found or noticed that its consumers are unresponsive to price. So option A says price has nothing to do with the demand of the product. It doesn't illustrate the principle. Hence A can be eliminated. Look at option B. The recent increase in gas prices caused an increased demand for fuel efficient cars. Option B is deceptive. It's slightly tricky. It says increase in gas prices has led to increased demand for fuel efficient cars. If we want to explain, perhaps we can make it this equation. Increase in gas prices, increase in one product has led to increase in price of fuel efficient cars. That's another product. Hence, we can say option B fails to illustrate the principle, because the principle expressed in the argument is when the price shoots up, the demand will fall down. B can also be eliminated. Look at option C. An increase in the number of computer retailers led to a decrease in the average price of computers. I would say this is the most deceptive answer choice, which is seemingly similar. I won't say which is similar, which is seemingly similar to the principle that being illustrated. Why do I say seemingly? When the price is up, demand will be down. That is what the principle. But here, option C slightly changes the idea. It says the number of computer retailers. What do you mean by retailers? Sellers. So, option C fails to explain the principle, because C says when the sellers have increased, price have come down. No. The principle illustrated in the argument is when the price of a product is less, demand will be more, not in the number of sellers. Hence, option C can also be eliminated. We have eliminated the three options. That doesn't mean option D has to be right, because there may be a chance that we may trip in reasoning. What I would advise is, while you analyze, keep analyzing the option D as well. Don't wrongly jump to the conclusion that D has to be an answer. For that, you need much more practice. Let's analyze option D first, and then we'll decide whether D is the answer or not. Let's read. A reduction in the price of oranges from $2 per pound to $1 per pound results in 75 pounds of oranges being sold as opposed to 50 pounds. Option D clearly illustrates the principle, perhaps in reverse way. It says a reduction in the price of oranges from $2 to $1 per pound. So earlier it was sold at $2. Now it's being sold at $1. Results in 75 pounds of oranges being sold as opposed to 50 pounds. Which means when oranges were sold at $2 per pound, the quantity being sold was 50 pounds. Since the price has come down to $1, the quantity being sold was 75 pounds. So this illustrates the principle that when the price of a product falls down, the quantity or the demand for the product will increase. Thereby, we are very sure option D illustrates the principle. The right choice for this question is option D.